Trent Sisley receiving an in-home visit today from Mike Woodson and staff. Yesterday, Matt Painter was in to see the 6'8", 2025 wing because that's a guy that Indiana can't let get away. And I was just talking to Greg Rakestraw about this. Not only is he a very talented basketball player, great family, great kid, a solid Indiana kid, Southern Indiana kid. You cannot lose a guy like that to Purdue. I don't care what era we're in. I don't care if we're in the portal era. There are still optics that are in play, and this is one of them, in my opinion.
Yes and no. I mean, there's certainly kids that it's tough when you grow up watching them at every level and you see them in your local gyms. The way the word travels, even pre-internet and social media and all that. Word about Hoopers gets around town and gets around the state rather quickly. And everybody has confidants that they trust. And you've heard his name talked about for some time now about the talent that he is. And you certainly, I still have the Sports Illustrated. Actually, I had two of them. We got two subscriptions so that if I had to cut out a page, I could have what was on the back page. I've still got my Sports Illustrateds from, the Damon Bailey era. So I very much understand and appreciate the importance of keeping homegrown Hoosiers local. All that said, I think the big difference now is when you were recruiting at the level that Woodson is, that most programs are now. It's not necessarily a deal breaker when you lose them. It's just typically in these instances, most recruits stay within about 100 miles of home or thereabout. And that means if he's not going to your school, he's probably going to one of your competitors, one of your rivals, maybe even somebody in conference. So that's always been the rub about these situations. And it's unfortunate, at the end of the day, I want to see every Indiana kid do well. I want to see every Indiana kid prosper. I'd love to see the best ones wearing the candy stripes. That said, though, you can't get them all. So it's a tough one. But at the end of the day, you've got to find the best players for your roster, for your culture, for your chemistry. And oftentimes, as we have seen here, especially as of late, sometimes you're going to miss that because when you're recruiting elite guys, they're going to expect elite minutes. They're going to be able to expect to be an elite contributor. And that path isn't always guaranteed based off current roster constructions or what's projected for the upcoming classes. So there's a lot of wrenches that can get thrown into the gears as we go down the road to these idyllic, hometown boy stays local stories that just frustrate things. But I guess the takeaway from this is, lo and behold, Mike Woodson still does recruit locally. So maybe we can put that storyline to bed. But I'll tell you what, I'm giving the guy a ton of leash right now because he's once again on a springtime terror on the recruiting trail, and just what a difference a month can make, man.
And I don't know that it matters who fills those final three spots. Luke Goody, probably a goody chance to. God, that's got to stop. Probably a good chance to be one of those three. They already are, I think, have the number one portal class, and adding someone like Luke Goody will add to that. And after that, it doesn't even matter who you add. And I don't mean that to diminish those other two people, because hell, they could end up being the guys you don't expect and come out and just be something that you didn't know. That's why when I see people putting out starting lineups and this and that, I'm like, man, they have not taken a dribble together. So just, I'm like, let it play out. But yeah, we know who certain guys that are going to start. Of course, Ballo's going to start. He's the only freaking center they got. Of course, Malik Renew is going to start. He's not going to not. And as of right now, I would be shocked if Rice and Carlisle don't start. So that doesn't even matter. It's what you have on that bench either way, because it will be something that Indiana did not have on that bench last season.
No doubt. I mean, I think my big takeaway so far with the the scholarship moves in the last month, I think first and foremost the floor has risen significantly as far as the overall talent on the roster. We saw late season Woody really whittled that rotation down. Now, part of that was due to injury. Was Xavier Johnson and some of the other guys that had some knocks throughout the season. But I think as a whole, the overall talent level has increased. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to bash the guys, but you look at where IU's departures. The three guys that left this season have landed. I don't believe a single one of them ended up P5, and that kind of tells you about where the talent level was of what was left or what has left versus, you've got all big or Pac-12 freshman of the year. Uh, you've got a player of the year. I'm sorry, a first team Pac-12 player of the year in Ballo. Um, you know, uh, Carlisle. He was honorable mention freshman in the Pac-12, but he was a national player of the week at one point. So it just, tremendous talent upgrade. And then you throw in Bryson Tucker. And I love this because not only is it another 5-star and Burger Boy in Woody's bag, but you're bringing him into an environment where he doesn't have to step in and be the dude right from the jump. And I think that is I, I think it's tremendous and it's an idyllic situation to have a guy that can grow into the role naturally rather than being forced into it. Think about Romeo Langford's great example. Um, guy had all the promise in the world, but when the rubber meets the road and you throw a freshman into Big Ten play against fifth year guys, it's a really steep learning curve, and I don't think that folks really appreciate the toll that takes on the player, both mentally, physically, emotionally. It's a lot to ask of a young guy, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's a really steep hill to climb. So when you bring him into an environment where there's depth, where there's competition, I think is just it's the perfect situation. And just those four guys alone, it'd been a heck of an off season for Mike Woodson and his staff. And as you mentioned, they're not done yet. But now I think whether it be Goody, bringing a little bit of depth at the wing and maybe a specialist from a shooting standpoint, I think they would love to pick up another post player just to provide some additional depth. But this is where it really gets tricky because, as we were just mentioning, you're probably done in the 5-star world. It's going to be tough to get a guy, basically a starter to come in when there's probably only bench minutes available. And that's not to say that there's going to be a cap. I think Woodson is all in on competition and divvying up the minutes accordingly. I'd love to see him get away from some of the platoon subs, but I think the pitfall in that, in the past was you just didn't have the talent to pull that off. And I think this is a roster that's being constructed in a way that maybe not quite full on ready for the platoon subs, but at least gives you significant, meaningful depth of talent across the board. And not only does it give you a deeper roster, I think it makes everybody better in practice and off season just because the level of competition in Cook Hall has stepped up. So it's going to be remarkable to see how he can get the mix to work because at the end of the day, you can have the best talent in the world, but if the chemistry is not there, it's just not going to get it done. But it seems like this is going to be one of the more competitive rosters we've seen in several years, at least since probably Indiana last hosted a Big Ten title.
No question. And that's something I mentioned earlier with Mike DeCourcy. I get so sick and tired of hearing now, and I'm not in these conversations, but I know it does happen with certain players that they want to be guaranteed a starting spot or they want to be guaranteed this or that. And now I'm not talking about the money. That's a different situation. I don't care about that. But when it comes to orchestrating, demanding how the team is going to be, no, absolutely not. And I would say, dude, are you not willing? Are you not good enough to start? You must think you're not good enough to start if you have to demand that. So, and if you're not, then we're happy to have you. But yeah, I'm not granting you a starting spot. I'm not granting you 25 minutes a game guaranteed. You have to earn that. You have to fight for that. You have to earn that in practice. You have to show that that's the effort that you give every day. Because if you can't give that effort to be that, why the hell would I think you're going to give it in a game? Why would I think you're not going to quit when you're not getting what you want? So that's the one thing that I think that is a little worrisome for some teams. I'm not saying Indiana or whatever, but just my little soapbox deal on that.
No, I think that breeds complacency. I think, and you don't have to look any further than Coach Sig's last press conferences. Competition is a great thing. And, you have to have guys that are willing to embrace the struggle, the grind, if you will. I know that gets overplayed, but that's really what it's about. The guys that go in every day and sharpen iron against other iron. And it's not an easy process, but that's typically where the best teams come from, is from that foundry. And I think it's important, and I think it's notable when you look at the roster and the guys that have chosen either to come or to stay. Implicit in those decisions are the decision to embrace the competition, and I think that starts at the top with Leal and Galloway. Quite honestly, those guys knew what the plan was going into the offseason, and they not only welcomed it, they embraced it. They continue to recruit guys who could be stealing their minutes, because at the end of the day, they want to win, and they know that's paramount here. And when you have an entire roster from staff, players 1 through 13 that are pulling in that same direction, that's typically where winning teams come from, is that exact type of environment. And it's tricky when you start getting in that elite talent level. That's kind of the expectation in today's day and age. And you see that reflected in the portal numbers right now. Everybody's looking for greener pastures, a better situation. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's healthy to try to get the best that you think you're deserving of. But at the end of the day, too, I think what's gone lost in this whole conversation is those guys who do choose to stay and embrace the process and embrace the grind and welcome the competition and earn their minutes that way. I think that's truly where you see the healthiest team dynamics, and where you see some of the most competitive teams, because that adage is as old as time. You play like you practice, and when you practice fierce and compete every set, that's typically how those teams are going to play. So you'd love to see that all across 17th Street right now in the revenue sports. So fascinated to see how it works. It's all great on paper. We'll see what it looks like when they roll the ball out here this fall, but it's certainly a marked departure from our conversations, again, just a month ago.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.